Welcome to North TV's debate between the two candidates for the 14th Bristol District State Representative seat, serving North Attleboro, I believe Precinct 3B in Attleboro, and 3 precincts in the town of Mansfield. But the majority of the votes will come from North Attleboro, so that's why we are in the North Attleboro studio with the two candidates. To make it easier for you, we put the Democrat on the left of your screen. He is the incumbent, Adam Scanlon, seeking a third term in office. And to my left, your right, the Republican challenger, David Cannata. This debate will start out with opening statements. I will ask 5 questions that will be addressed to both candidates. So a question won't be just for David or just for Adam. It will be answered by both candidates. When we are done with those 5 questions, the candidates will ask questions of each other, and then we'll have a chance to respond to how that question was answered, and then we will close with a closing statement. Election day is, of course, on Tuesday, November 5th. It's the presidential election, so chances are the turnout will be very high. North TV will not be having live election results. Adam, I think you can remember the first time you ran. I don't think the returns were official until the next morning, and after filling for 2.5 hours, we decided that we'll probably stay home and watch the presidential results. And I know Channel 5 and the other broadcast stations will have the results live at the bottom of the screen. Let's get right to the opening statements. Each candidate will have 2 minutes to deliver an opening statement. We literally flipped a coin out in the office before coming into the studio. Adam Scanlon won that toss, and he will deliver the first opening statement. Adam, you have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you to everyone here at North TV and in our local media for covering this very important debate in this critical election. For those that don't know me, my name is Adam Scanlon, and I'm running for re-election to continue being your state representative on Beacon Hill. I am a proud graduate of our public schools here in North Attleboro and a proud graduate of a state college. My father, Mark, built his masonry business here 30 years ago and is a proud graduate of Tri-County. My mother, Darlene, is also a graduate of North Attleboro High School and currently lives with my grandmother, Judy, who has lived in town for over 50 years. I started working here when I was 15, and I am now a renter here in town. Prior to being your state representative, I served as a member of Representative Town Meeting, the school committee, and the inaugural town council. I have spent my entire adult life trying to make our community a better place. 4 years ago, our communities faced disappointing trends in state aid because of a formula that had put towns like ours at a disadvantage to other communities. I sought to fix these trends in our state aid by addressing the school funding formula. With a lot of teamwork, we made our point and made important tweaks to the formula. In FY25, we saw the highest increase in state aid in history for education funding for North Attleboro, and North Attleboro was invited into the eligibility period to request a feasibility study for our high school in my first year in office. Additionally, I've been able to secure financing and grants to address the PFAS issues that have impacted our community, and I was successful in my advocacy for tax relief for seniors and families across the Commonwealth, as well as advancing important policies to lift up our veterans through key reforms as part of the HERO Act. I also believe that I've brought a lot of attention to the importance of vocational education as well as substance abuse. I've also been a strong supporter of survivors of assault and have helped push critical bills of the Judiciary Committee that I sit on. I look forward to more conversation with you tonight.
The next opening statement will be delivered by David Cannata. David, you also have 2 minutes.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for hosting this. Thank you for everyone who's watching. Thank you for Adam for you participating in this debate. And I am David Cannata, Jr. I am also running for the 14th Bristol District seat for the state representative position. I'm doing that because Beacon Hill needs more legislators who come from the middle class, have lived a middle class life, who know what it means to work with their hands, legislators who've known the struggle of raising a child and balancing the family budget. If Beacon Hill had more legislators who've come from and lived that life, we'd have a legislature more sensitive to the burdens placed on the middle class. I was raised in North Attleboro. My dad managed apartment buildings. At an early age, I learned the joys of raking leaves, shoveling snow, fixing frozen pipes, and plugged up toilets. With his savings, my dad purchased a farm in Vermont, where I also, at a young age, learned the joys of making hay, feeding cows, and shoveling manure. It was not my destiny to spend my college years with Ivy League professors, but perhaps for that reason, I hear the voices of working people that they don't. After studying civil engineering at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute and enrolling in additional classes at UMass Amherst, I embarked on my journey as an entrepreneur. I know what it's like to have 3 jobs. We still have that farm in Vermont and sell maple syrup. Like my father, I've managed properties and production facilities. I train workers for the OSHA laws on how to come home and stay safe on the job. Along the way, I've raised a daughter and devoted time serving the American Legion and the veterans who fought to protect our freedoms. Now, I'll never forget where I came from or the struggles of the working class people. In this campaign, that's who I speak for, the unconscionable tax burden that they face and the urgent need for the middle class tax cut. The immigration crisis that has cost Massachusetts over $1 billion, not to mention the skyrocketing cost of electricity, living, and housing, all of which has been caused by people like Adam. I speak for the people who feel this pain, and it's for them that I will speak if I am elected.
And you will see the candidates kind of glance over to the side. Eric Kugler here at North TV is acting as our timer. And I would just recommend to both of you gentlemen, when you see the 10-second cue, wrap up whatever sentence you are on at that time. Okay, time for the first question. My questions aren't timed, so I get as long as I want. First question will be answered by David Kanata. In your opinion, what is the biggest challenge facing Massachusetts and this district over the next 2 years? And if elected, what will you be able to do to help overcome that challenge?
Well, thank you, Peter, for the question. It's an excellent question. We have a housing crisis here in Massachusetts. Part of that crisis is caused by the illegal immigration, where we have over 350,000 illegal immigrants here in Massachusetts. See, we have a vacancy sign out on the front door of Massachusetts. When you drive down the highway and you drive by a motel, you see that big vacancy sign. It tells you that we have room for people here. And that's what the sign is doing for us here in Massachusetts. And Adam has helped light that sign through legislation that he's helped pass. Now, he's going to talk a lot about his record, and he's proud of it, and we're going to talk about that throughout the debate here today, I'm sure. But what I can tell you is that the policies that have been passed over the last 4 years by the federal legislature and the legislature here in Massachusetts, we are inviting people to come by telling people that we have room for you, we have housing for you, we will feed you, we will provide medical care for you, and we will educate your children. And the truth is, we don't have the capacity to do that. But with the failed policies of this administration that we currently have in office with the single-party rule, we are continuing to tell people that we have that availability here.
Thank you, David. Adam, same question. Do you want me to repeat it? Or?
No, I'm okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Peter, for the question. So the immigration crisis is something that's very important to me as well. As you'll remember, we had a massive flood storm here a year ago, and only a couple days later, I got an email from the administration saying that we were going to be hosting migrants in North Attleboro. Not the town's choice, just the way that it happened. And I immediately sprung into action to try to get as much information as possible. I worked with our fire chief, our town councilors, our school committee, our superintendent, to get the information that needed to get out there. Housing is a critical issue, and it's one thing to talk about this issue, but it's another thing to have led on this issue, and that's what I've done. I was a key advocate for the housing bond bill that invested over $5 billion into housing of all shapes and sizes, as well as common sense legislation that will spur housing through the use of ADUs. I'm also proud to have stood up to members of the federal delegation. Unfortunately, if David or I, continue to serve, there's no off button for immigration that we can push. What we can do, though, is implement the strategies that we have done, which is the 9-month cap and the implementation of competitive bidding, which is what we've done in Massachusetts. We all agree that the crisis isn't sustainable. I've called out Senator Markey, Senator Warren when they voted against the immigration bill, and I'll continue to do so.
Question number 2, and you hear this all the time. Many people claim Massachusetts is a one-party state. We'll begin with you, Adam. Do you believe that to be true? And if so, who is to blame?
Well, our voters have the right to vote, and they get to choose who they would like to see represent them. At the end of the day, I think people look at our record, at my record, and be able to draw some conclusions. There's 2 rooms at the State House. There's one room with about 20 to 25 members. That's the minority caucus. And then there's another room with 130 members. And just because we're all Democrats doesn't mean that we all think the same way. It's like asking your family, just because you're from the same family, do you like to go to the same restaurant? No, that's not true. We have debates, and oftentimes I'll be going into caucus and I'll be raising up concerns. I was the only Democrat in this region, in the House, to raise concerns about the immigration crisis. When the firearms bill was going through the process that it was going through, I raised concerns about that project. I have the ability to tap on the Speaker's ear and the Chair of Ways and Means ear. That's why we've been so successful in getting so much aid for this district, because of the relationships that I've been able to build over the course of my tenure. I'm proud of the fact that we've invested in organizations like Sisters at Heart and Kyle Cares and all of the playgrounds and parks here in North Attleboro. That didn't happen by accident. That happened because I was able to help put North Attleboro on the map at the State House and ensure we have a place at the table, and I will always continue to do so.
David, same question.
All right, thank you, Peter. One of the things Adam just mentioned is that he's got the Speaker's ear. While there is an overwhelming majority of Democrats in the legislature right now and the Senate, while he may have made some relationships, it certainly doesn't seem like he's advocating for the people here in our district, because, as we will talk about later, he has voted 99% of the time with the leadership. So while he may say that he's advocating for us in this district, as he just mentioned, that he's advocating against the gun bill, or he's raised concerns about the gun bill, while he may have raised concerns, nothing was done about it. It was told for that bill specifically that it was unconstitutional, and I'm sure that we will see that in the near future. It was passed anyway, along with Adam's vote for it. It's just one example of taking away our constitutional rights, something that I will never do. And speaking of other things that has been advocated for on behalf of our district here, Adams voted for all of the failed energy policies that we have here in Massachusetts, specifically the energy bill from 2021, the Climate Act of 2021, that basically decreed that we are going to be fossil fuel free in about 25 years. And that's something that has driven up the rising costs of energy, housing, and lots of other things that are causing these burdens on the middle class here in Massachusetts, in our district.
Question number 3, and David will be the first to answer this one. Massachusetts consistently ranks at the top or near the top of all states when it comes to education. That being the case, do you support the elimination of the MCAS exam as a high school graduation requirement? And if voters do eliminate that requirement on November 5th, would you as a legislator want another threshold put in place?
Absolutely. Thank you for the question, Peter. The ballot questions this year are quite tough. There's 5 of them, and they do require a lot of investigation into both sides. And I advocate for everybody to do that and do the research, look into both sides, and decide which answer you think is the best answer. For a lot of the questions, I don't really think there is a right answer, but I do think there is a better answer. And I certainly would advocate for a metric that evaluates our students to ensure that people graduating high school, our young kids that are graduating high school, have the proficiencies that they need. Just like driver's licenses, you wouldn't want to put out a 16-year-old on the road without having to take a test. Those tests evaluate their abilities to interact with the public and become good members of society, functioning members of society. So I do think it's really important that we have metrics to measure and evaluate our students before they enter society. And I think that's something that we definitely need to take action on here in Massachusetts.
Adam, same question.
Thank you. So as a former school committee member, I understand the challenges that MCAS presents to our schools. Being that this is a ballot question, whether me or David get elected, we have to be representative of the results of the people. So I myself will pledge to honor whatever that vote may be. If it is a yes vote and we do eliminate as a graduation requirement, then the legislature is going to have to come back and work with all key stakeholders to put a path forward that talks about accountability. My personal preference is I've always been a big fan of experiential learning, hands-on work. I've been a big advocate for vocational education. I think there's more in that realm that we can tap into, and that's where my focus would be. And I think regardless of whatever plans either of us have to present, we have to look at each other and say, who can get this done and who has gotten this done? I work with Republicans all the time. The difference is the Republicans that I work with are what you would refer to as middle of the road. I don't take pictures with people like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Mark Robinson because those people don't represent the values of our community. I will always stand up for everyone in this community, regardless of who they are and regardless of their political affiliation.
Question number 4. The two communities North TV serves, North Attleboro and Plainville, have made tremendous strides in making local government as transparent as possible. When it comes to state government, however, especially the legislature, the opposite seems to be true. Do you believe House leadership is as transparent as it should be? And if not, what would you do over the next 2 years to improve transparency? Adam?
Thank you. This question is very important to me. It's an issue that I've led on in the House. We have made significant rules reform to address issues of transparency that have arisen. I myself am proud to post not only all of my roll call votes, but also my committee votes on my website in an understandable way. And I will always answer emails, or when constituents call, I will always answer them. I've bucked the party before on issues of these types of questions. And I think the key thing here is experience and a record. Who has the record of showing experience in being transparent? I remember times when I was on the school committee working with stakeholders like Justin Paré and Keith LaPointe and Catherine Hobbs when we were talking about the override at the time. And all of us worked pretty hard to ensure that the information is out there. Information is key. And another note on transparency, I'm sure David is going to say he wants to be transparent as well, but let's take a second here to look at the fact that David hasn't posted any of his campaign contributions on OCPF. Who is funding his campaign? We don't know. The report was due yesterday and he didn't do it. I'm proud that I post all of my donors on my campaign website because I believe in transparency. You gotta walk the walk to talk the talk.
Same question, David.
All right, thank you, Peter. Yes, so we absolutely need transparency in our legislature and in our government, something that we absolutely do not have right now. There is a ballot question, as I'm sure everyone is aware, asking for an audit from the executive branch, which has some of its own issues, but the fact of the matter is there is no transparency on Beacon Hill right now. That is something that I absolutely am going to bring to the table here in Massachusetts. We need to be accountable for our actions, and that's something that we have not seen yet here. Adam boasts that he posts all of his roll call votes on his website, and sure, posting what you've done is well and fine, but it doesn't say what it actually means. It takes a lot of research to understand what those votes mean, and I can give you the cliff notes if you'd like. We have seen over the past 4 years 357 roll call votes by Adam. 352 of those were with the party leadership. So if you want to know what's happening there, all you have to do is look to the leadership. He's voted lockstep with the governor, who now has a 33% approval rating, and that's not something that I think we should be proud of. The lack of transparency where the legislature can't even audit themselves is not something that I would be proud of.
Question number 5. The collapse of Steward Healthcare has put more of a strain on the state's other hospitals. Thank goodness Morton Hospital in Taunton remained open. Who knows what that would have done to the wait times at Sturdy Memorial. What can the state do, specifically the legislature, to make sure this does not happen again in Massachusetts and assure residents will have access to health care close to where they live? David?
Well, thank you, Peter. I appreciate the question. The idea that the legislature can help these private entities, these hospitals, to continue to open their doors seems to be an issue that could be related to certain tax policies that we have here in Massachusetts. We have skyrocketing electricity prices. We have skyrocketing energy prices. The fact of the matter is we're seeing here in Massachusetts energy prices 50% higher than the national average. And all of these extra costs are not just hitting the middle class and the people here in Massachusetts, they're hitting business owners as well, including these hospitals, which has ultimately forced them into some very difficult situations. Things like where we've seen them go into bankruptcy proceedings, which has ultimately forced the government to take action that needs to have a serious look at. So if we can ease the tax burden on our citizens, which in turn helps bring more people here, we've forced 25,000 people out of Massachusetts. Those are taxpayers. It's cost the people here, the people here in Massachusetts, over $4 billion in tax revenue. This is stuff that is hurting all people and businesses. We need to bring people back, not force them out.
Adam, same question.
Sure. So just to go back for a couple points. Speaking of the audit, I'm glad that State Auditor Diana DiZoglio supports me in my campaign. We've had a good relationship over the past few years, despite what other colleagues might say about her. When it comes to voting with the speaker or voting with the party, you kind of have to ask yourselves, well, how do the Republicans usually vote? They always vote as a block. And sometimes that is in a bipartisan way. For example, when I led on the issue of tax cuts, when we passed the largest tax relief bill in the history of Massachusetts, Republicans voted with us. When it came to universal school meals, Republicans voted with us. When it came to the housing bill, Republicans voted with us. When it came to money for our cities and towns, they vote with us. That's because I've been able to forge relationships. And we need to focus, instead of who you are voting with, but what are you voting on? And I just want to emphasize that point. In regards to this question, the House has taken steps to prohibit hospitals from leasing the property of their main campuses from real estate investment trust. This is what occurred with the Steward Healthcare crisis, when they financed their national expansion by selling their real estate assets with the plan to rent them for operation. We've strengthened the accountability requirements so there's more regular reporting, which would have made stewards' irregularities known much sooner. And we've also done some work to lift up some of our local pharmacies here in town by putting them on the same playing field as places like Caremark. Desperately needed legislation.
All right, that's 5 questions from me. I have one more I'll save till the end. The next 4 questions will be asked by the candidates to each other. The first question will be asked by Adam Scanlon. You have 1 minute to ask the question. We put a time limit on the question itself so it doesn't become a speech followed by a question. You have 1 minute, you'll have 1 minute 30 seconds to answer, and then you'll have 1 minute 30 seconds to respond.
Okay, thank you, David. So post the Dobbs decision, the issue of reproductive rights is left up to the states. In my first term in office, we codified Roe through a bill. How would you have voted on that bill?
Thank you, Adam. I appreciate the question. Reproductive rights is something that here in Massachusetts is not going to change. We have the Constitution here in Massachusetts that guarantees those reproductive rights, as you just mentioned with that bill. But, you know, I think some of the more, some of the really important issues that we have here in Massachusetts are things like the skyrocketing energy bills, the skyrocketing cost of housing, the skyrocketing cost of living, fixing the immigration crisis and cutting taxes for the middle class taxpayers. You know, I have my own personal beliefs on what I think should happen, but it's a free country, and I'm perfectly able to have my own personal beliefs in that. But to try to amend the Constitution here in Massachusetts, that's not something that I'm going to try to do. I'm not going to take away fundamental rights that are enshrined in the Constitution, like some of the bills that you've voted on actually do. So I'm not going to the legislature to amend the Constitution.
Adam, you have 90 seconds to respond.
Thank you. Voters across this district deserve to know that where their state rep stands on the issue of reproductive rights. I was proud to vote for that bill. David just didn't answer the question. He's been backed by anti-choice groups, so that lets you know what his personal beliefs are. He just said, well, it's not going to change. But this question is about more than that. It's about where your values stand. I will always protect the woman's right to choose. The government needs to mind its own business when it comes to the medical decisions of a woman and her doctor and her family. That is what we have had to do in the post-Dobbs decision. That's why I voted the way I did. We couldn't get an answer out of David, unfortunately, on that issue. So I'm proud of where I stand on that issue, and I will continue to be a leader on that front.
The next question will be asked by David Canada to Adam Scanlon. David?
Thank you, Peter. Adam, so you said earlier this year that you're running on your record, and we have an immigration crisis here in Massachusetts costing us over $1 billion. You've quite literally laid out the welcome mat for people that have broken the law to be here in this country, to come here to Massachusetts, saying that we will provide shelter, we will provide food, we will provide medical care, we will educate your children. You've done all of this and put those people in the front of the line over our citizens and our veterans. You've literally lit the vacancy sign. And in addition to the energy crisis that we have here in Massachusetts, putting Massachusetts 50% over the national average, we have a tax burden that's one of the worst in the country, and you provided no tax relief to the biggest class of people that we have in Massachusetts in our district, the middle class. So I commend you for running on your record, but with the record that you have, I don't know anybody that would vote for more of that. So how can you justify your record, which has caused the conditions in which we are living in here?
Thank you, David. So in terms of tax relief, that was a bill we got passed. It was the largest tax relief bill in the history of the Commonwealth. I lit on that bill. Charlie Baker advocated for that bill. Republicans in the House and the Senate advocated for that bill. When it comes to immigration, we need answers. We can't just say, oh, it's expensive and somebody needs to figure it out. We need to be proactive. We need solutions. We do prioritize our veterans. We invested $200 million in the housing bill for veterans over the summer in that housing bill. We want to ensure that veterans are prioritized for public housing. They are. Go across the street. I've met with the tenants of South Washington Street, Elm Terrace, and Circle Court. People that are veterans are prioritized to get into those housing. The housing that he's talking about is emergency shelter. Veterans deserve better than a small hotel room that often does not have any kitchen supplies. I'm proud of the fact that we've put limitations. I've said it's not sustainable. I've said to Elizabeth Warren, to Ed Markey, that they're wrong for when they voted on this bill, and I'll keep standing up to them because nobody messes with my community. Nobody's going to take advantage of us while I'm the state rep, and I'll continue to stand up for us.
David, your response?
Sure. It sounds like you're proud of your record. I understand that you've said in just about every occasion that you could that you've done a lot for our veterans. And there are certainly plenty of bills that have been passed throughout your tenure that are great for veterans. I believe there's been 10 bills that may have passed. 9 good bills does not make up for the 1 bad vote. You know, you had an opportunity to put veterans first in line, and it was a slap in the face to every person in this state that put their life on the line to serve their country. For you to say that you're standing up against the leadership in the state and then voting exactly the way that they tell you to vote does not seem like you're looking out for the people here in this district. It sounds like you're just going along to get along. You've been a lifelong politician. It's what you did as soon as you got out of school, and it's what you're continuing to try to do now. I think the people here deserve somebody who's actually going to look out for the people of this district and not just try to climb the ladder being a lifelong politician. That's not something that I'm trying to do. My background shows, with all of the work history and life experience that I do have, it's shown that I am a working class person. I know what it's like, I know what the struggles are, and I'm going to take that with me to Beacon Hill and help bring change.
The next question will be asked by Adam. It will be addressed to David. Adam.
Thank you. So David, you've raised concerns about the roadmap bill, the climate bill from 2021. I just want to know why you think Betty Poirier, who voted for that bill, why Governor Charlie Baker, who signed that bill, why House Republican leader Brad Jones, Senate leader, Republican leader Bruce Tarr, who supported that bill, and myself, why are all of those people wrong, again, including Betty Poirier, who voted for this bill? Why are all of us wrong, and why are you right?
Well, thank you, Adam. It's a great question. The energy bill, the 2021 energy bill that basically decreed we're going to be fossil fuel free, net zero by 2050, has caused a lot of problems. There was significant pushback from the Republican side of the aisle stating that there are significant problems that are going to come down the road, and we are feeling those right now. The fact is that the single-party rule in Massachusetts did not listen to the Republican side of the aisle and pushed it through in their first plan. And I think all of us know that whenever you have a plan to do anything, the first iteration of that plan never goes the way it should. And that's what we're seeing here. There wasn't pushback that was listened to from the Republican side of the aisle, which has now sparked a renewal from the regulators to look at that bill. You know, this is forcing us to build a way that we don't want to build. It's regulators telling us how to build our homes without us choosing how to build our homes. It's like an airline being mandated by the government to get somebody from Boston to San Diego in 20 minutes. It's unrealistic, and it's not going to happen. The regulators have been unleashed on us here in Massachusetts, telling us how to live and how to heat our homes, putting bigger electric panels in our home for all solar, and having electric vehicle charging stations in our homes, even if you don't have an electric car. And that's just not right.
Adam, your response.
Thank you. So a lot of that was, there were some falsehoods in that. This is the voting record from the bill David's talking about. 145 people voted for it, 9 people voted against it. This bill originated in 2021. Who voted for it? The Speaker, Brad Jones, Rep. Poirier, Rep. Barros, Steve Howitt. When this bill came back up for debate when I was in session, after I voted on it, this is what Governor Baker said about this bill. This bill puts us on an ambitious path to achieving a cleaner and more livable Commonwealth while also creating economic development opportunities, Baker said moments after signing the legislation into law. He also went on to say, "I'm proud to say that climate change has not been, ever, a partisan issue. We know the impacts on our coast, on our fisheries, on our farms, and our economies are real and demand action. That's what we've been committed to for over a decade." But anyways, everybody knows that climate change, or I hope would admit that climate change is a real thing. We had a 100-year storm last year. I'm afraid that those events are going to happen again. But I will say that I advocated pretty successfully for getting federal relief from FEMA as well as state aid for disaster relief. And that's what I'll continue to do, and facts matter.
All right, the final question, other than my question, will be asked by David to Adam.
All right, thank you, Peter, for this opportunity. And thank you, Adam. So you talk about all the wonderful relationships that you've been able to make in the legislature, even when you voted 99% of the time with the leadership. That's 352 out of 357 times with the leadership. My question for you is, what good is it doing the community that you vote lockstep with the legislative leadership? Because we have a housing crisis in Mass. We have that illegal immigration crisis being invited into here in Massachusetts. We have energy prices that are through the roof. We have one of the highest tax rates in the country. Aren't you allowed to tell them no once in a while? Because this isn't the voting record of somebody with steel in their spine, Adam. This is the voting record of a jellyfish. So what are we getting from you for being a jellyfish?
Adam?
Well, that question stings. Anyways,
Oh, I get it.
I would say that I'm proud of the results that we've been able to produce for this district. Republicans and Democrats voted to come together on housing, on climate, on education reform, education aid, so many tax relief, so many other things, veteran bills. We vote together all of the time. Sometimes there's procedural votes that come up, and some people don't always go the same way on that issue. But it's important to remember that a representative represents everyone in this community. They represent Republicans, they represent Democrats, and they represent independents. And there's many, many times when the Republicans do vote with the Democrats. Again, who do you think the Republicans always vote with? They vote with themselves. David's a member of the Republican State Committee. Who do you think he's going to vote for all of the time? He's been adamant about that. He couldn't even tell the difference between Charlie Baker and Donald Trump. I mean, that's not the type of Republican that we want in office. I have a better leverage in holding people accountable in my caucus because I'm in the room where the decisions are made. And I'm going to keep advocating for our community.
Your response, David?
Yes, thank you, Adam. Thank you for that. I am adamant about doing the right thing. It doesn't have to be the party lines. It has to be the right thing. And voting with the leadership 352 out of 357 times, 99% of the times, does not seem like something to be proud of. You say that you're a record voting with the leadership all of that time. What's happened in that time with all of those votes? The required audit by the legislature hasn't been done, which is why there's a ballot question. They've not shown their books. It's shown no transparency since you got to the legislature. Bills passed by your legislative leadership have fostered into Massachusetts the standard of living that is now declining because the cost of everything has skyrocketed. We have 355,000 new immigrants and not enough housing, food, or for any of them. The energy crisis that's here is driving people out of their home. Obviously, leadership is fine giving you these bills because they know you're going to vote with them 99% of the time. It would have been nice of you to tell us about the times that you actually differed with them. The bottom line is 99% of the time you did exactly what they asked you to do. And we have a district here where nobody can afford to live anymore. We have in our state 25,000 taxpayers who have left. That's $4 billion that have left our state because of those taxpayers leaving. And all that's really left us with is you making good relationships in the legislature by sucking up to those people for the last 4 years and done everything they've asked you to do.
Final question. And David, you will be the first to answer. Mm-hmm. What fears you the most if Adam is elected to the 2-year term serving our district?
Thank you, Peter, for that question. It is a great fear of mine because as we've seen for the last 4 years, and as I just mentioned, we're going to see more of the same. We're going to see more continued votes with party leadership against common sense, which is what we need to bring back to the legislature. We need common sense. We need people from the middle class who understand the struggles of what people are going through to make sure that we can continue to live here, afford to live here. We need to relax some of the mandates that are there, causing these skyrocketing energy prices, the taxes that are out of control, the inflation that's out of control. All these things are hitting home hard, and it's making it difficult for people to live here and stay here. We've lost 25,000 residents here in Massachusetts. We've lost that tax revenue. All the people that are coming here are not paying taxes. They're coming here to be sheltered. They're not taxpayers that are coming here. And that's a big problem. We need to take down the sign. We need to take that vacancy sign down, and we need to reform our legislature to begin doing the things that it needs to do. All of the votes that have come from Adam have been right with the leadership. We need somebody who's going to stand up for us here in the district, and we're not seeing that right now, and we will continue to not see that if I am not elected.
Adam, what fears you the most if David is elected to the 2-year term serving our district?
Sure. So like I've said throughout this debate, we've had record amounts of aid for this district. We've had education funding come in. We've had a number of important projects come in for funding. We have an important high school vote that we will need a state representative that has a relationship with the MSBA, the School Building Authority, that can advocate for a lower reimbursement rate. And I am that candidate. When it comes to being a member of the middle class, I started working when I was 15 years old. My dad owns his own business. He's been a mason for 30 years. My mom cut hair for 30 years. So that's who we are. We're members of the middle class. I am so proud of what we've been able to do for so many of our citizens in this Commonwealth. We are moving in the right direction. We have taken steps to limit the immigration crisis. We will continue to do so. I will always be an advocate for this community. I will always stand up to our federal leaders when they refuse to ignore this problem. We need someone who isn't going to come in here and say, this is a problem, this is a problem, this is a problem, without proposing any solutions. We need solutions, and we've tried to put solutions in place on the immigration crisis. We've put substantive bills regarding the cost of housing and affordability in place. ADUs, that was a huge piece in the housing bill, and I look forward to talking about other stuff with you.
That wraps up the question and answer portion of tonight's debate. We will close with closing statements, and once again, by the flip of the coin, David Kanata will deliver the first closing statement. David, this time you have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Peter. Thank you for having me here. During this debate, I've spoken for people who come from the middle class, those who've lived a middle class life, those who work with their hands, those who know the struggles of raising children and balancing the family budget. They do not struggle because they are lazy. They do not struggle because they are ill-informed. They struggle because what our leaders have done and the consequences of their policies. The past 4 years, our paychecks have been ravaged by inflation. Our borders have been opened to more than 350,000 illegal immigrants who've come to Massachusetts, forcing those who live here, work here, and pay taxes here to get in line behind those who broke the law to be here. The Climate Act passed by the legislature in 2021 has caused the skyrocketing price of electricity, now 50% higher than the national average. It's why parents are forced to choose between paying the electric bills or buying jackets for their kids in the winter. It's why the elderly are forced to choose between having heat in the winter or refilling their prescriptions. I do not hate green energy. I just think we can get there without bankrupting and driving the middle class out of Massachusetts. The least we can do is cut the tax burden on the middle class. Adam and I are two very different people. Tonight you've heard my priorities: reducing your tax burden across the board, rolling back mandates and rules that are driving up the cost of housing, the cost of energy, the cost of living, reforming the right to shelter law to ensure that our veterans, our citizens who need a hand up, are not pushed to the back end of the line by those who violated our laws to be here. Adam's record is different. Feeble attempts to undo the damage he's caused by tinkering with the tax code, mandating more rules that raise the price of housing, the cost of energy, and the cost of living, voting lockstep with the governor and other leaders that has taken our state in the wrong direction, not the right direction. Change will not come unless you vote for change. This is why Betty Poirier has endorsed me for this position. She knows that I will be the change that we need. She understands I have the work experience, life experience, and the ability to build relationships that will help me bring positive change to our community. If you agree with what I've talked about here tonight, I need your vote. I need your family's vote, and I need your friends' vote. Please tell everyone you know how important it is to get to the polls and vote. In 2022, we had a state rep lose their race by one vote. You can be that one vote that decides this election. The person you drive to the polls could be that one vote. Find more information about me on our website, votecanada.com, and vote for me on Election Day. Thank you, Adam, for being here. Thank you, Peter, for hosting this tonight. Thank you, everyone, for watching and considering me on Election Day.
Thank you, David. Adam, you also have 3 minutes.
Thank you, Peter, and everyone here at North TV and in our media for scheduling this very important debate. I also want to thank David for participating. Upon taking office as the youngest state representative at the time, I knew that our communities faced major challenges and still do to this day. At the time of my swearing in, our country was recovering from the pandemic and political unrest. Other major challenges, such as the 100-year flood from last year and the migrant crisis, emerged. Despite all of these challenges, I've worked extremely hard with other legislators and community leaders that I have built relationships with to help us navigate ourselves back on track. During both the flood and the migrant crisis, I even stood up to members of my own party at the federal level when our community's needs were not being met, and have lobbied aggressively for robust reforms. I will not let anyone take advantage of this community. And at the end of the day, no matter your political affiliation, the job of a state representative is to advocate for the community. And I am proud to do that every day. I believe that we are better off than we were 4 years ago. North Attleboro received the highest increase in funding for education aid from the state in the FY25 budget, both in dollars and in percentage, because of tweaks to the formula that I was not only able to advocate for, but secured. I'm proud of the other investments I've been able to help secure for our community, such as financing for infrastructure to address the PFAS issues, infrastructure repairs for Kelly Boulevard, additional funds to fix our roads and bridges, flood relief, funding for our senior center, and funding for playgrounds and parks in North Attleboro, and Mansfield. We've expanded benefits for veterans and cut taxes for seniors. We've made community college and universal school meals free for all residents and have made key investments to improve our housing stock through common sense legislation. This district needs a leader who not only wants to be collaborative, but has a proven record of doing so. I believe that across this country, Americans are tired of the divisiveness. I have always surrounded myself with people during my time in office, people from all sides of the political spectrum, that want to get things done and do so in a collaborative way. Unlike Dave, I don't take pictures with people like Marjorie Taylor Greene or Mark Robinson. As you know, Rep. Greene has raised doubts about the events of 9/11 ever happening, and Robinson only openly identified himself as a black Nazi. These are not the people that our state rep for our district should be idolizing, and I will never let anyone try to take away a woman's right to choose. This seat belongs to the people. It doesn't belong to the politicians or a political family. You get to decide our future. At a time when so many important projects are on the horizon, we need a leader who has proven themselves and can continue to lead us towards future success, and I believe we need someone who has showed us that they can unite us and not one that divides us. I humbly ask for your vote in this race as it comes down to experience, and I'd like to remind everyone, this ain't my first time at the rodeo.
Thank you, Adam. Thank you, David. Great debate, gentlemen. Now up to you. The polls will open at 7 a.m., of course. There is already early voting, voting by mail, etc. But the polls will open at North Attleboro High School on Tuesday, November 5th at 7 a.m. They will close at 8 p.m. Important to note, if you are in line at 8 p.m., it's kind of like a ride at Disney. You get to ride the ride. In this case, you get to cast your ballot. Want to thank the two candidates, of course, their teams, Eric Kugler, our timer, Chris Miller, our director, producer this evening. Want to remind you also that this debate and the one-on-one interviews, which covered some of the questions, the issues, the topics we did not discuss tonight, will be replayed on our government channel right through the close of polls on Tuesday, November 5th. They're also available for free for all North Attleboro residents to watch. You can go to the one-on-one folder, and you can also go to the North TV election folder in the government channel portion of the northtv.net website. On behalf of all of us, have a great night. Hope to see you at the polls on November 5th.